What would you do if your best friend passed away, and 1 year later, his widow appeared
Hola.
at your door carrying a secret he left behind just for you? In today's emotional and inspiring story, a former army veteran discovers that his late best friend had been hiding something that would change his life forever. What starts as a heartbreaking reunion soon turns into a powerful mission of friendship, loyalty, and honoring a promise that refused to die. Before we begin, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another inspiring story. Now grab a seat and let's get started. Jake Morrison had been my best friend since high school in Dallas, Texas. We met when we were 16 and quickly became inseparable. Through football games, late-night road trips, and countless adventures, we always had each other's backs. After graduation, we both joined the army, serving together overseas and facing challenges that strengthened our bond even more. When Jake married Emily, I stood beside him as his best man. Years later, he returned the favor at my wedding. To everyone around us, we seemed more like brothers than friends. That was why losing him in a tragic highway accident shattered a part of me that I thought could never be repaired. The year after Jake's death felt like a blur. I threw myself into work, hoping long hours would distract me from the pain. Some days were easier than others, but reminders of him were everywhere. A photograph from our deployment sat on my desk. His old fishing rod was still hanging in my garage, where he had left it after our last trip together. Emily and I spoke only occasionally, mostly on birthdays and holidays. She was struggling with her own grief, and I respected her need for space. Slowly, I convinced myself that life was beginning to move forward, even if the loss never truly disappeared. One rainy Saturday afternoon, I was cleaning the house when someone knocked on my front door. I wasn't expecting visitors. When I opened it, I froze. Emily stood on the porch, her dark hair damp from the rain, and a tired expression on her face. In her hands was a worn leather notebook I had never seen before. She looked nervous, almost as if she had rehearsed what she wanted to say 100 times. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she took a deep breath and stepped inside. The tension in her eyes immediately told me this wasn't a casual visit. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. Emily kept her hands wrapped tightly around the notebook, as though she was afraid to let it go. I offered her coffee, but she politely declined. Her gaze drifted around the room until it landed on the framed picture of Jake and me in uniform. She swallowed hard before speaking. "I've been trying to do this for months," she said quietly, "but I wasn't ready." The seriousness in her voice sent a chill down my spine. Every possible explanation raced through my mind, yet none of them prepared me for what she said next. Emily finally placed the notebook on the table between us. Her hands trembled slightly as she pushed it toward me. "A few weeks before Jake died, he asked me to keep this safe," she whispered. "He made me promise not to bring it to you until exactly 1 year after he was gone." My heart pounded as I stared at the notebook. Questions flooded my mind. Why had Jake left something for me? What could be inside that was important enough to wait an entire year? Emily looked directly into my eyes and took another deep breath. "I need to tell you what Jake asked of me before he died." The room suddenly felt silent as my pulse began to race. Emily sat quietly as I opened the leather notebook. Its pages were filled with Jake's handwriting, each entry carefully dated over the final months of his life. My chest tightened as I read words written by a man I thought I would never hear from again. He described memories from our army days, the mistakes he regretted, and the dreams he still hoped would survive after he was gone. Then I found an envelope tucked between 2 pages with my name written across the front. My hands trembled as I opened it. Emily watched silently, knowing that whatever was inside was meant to change everything. The letter began with a joke only Jake and I would understand. For a moment, it felt as if he were sitting across from me again, but as I continued reading, the tone became serious. Jake explained that after leaving the army, he had quietly invested most of his savings into a project we had once discussed late one night around a campfire. We had dreamed of creating affordable housing for struggling veterans who returned home with nowhere to go. Jake wrote that he never forgot that conversation. While I moved on with life, he spent years turning that dream into a real plan. As I reached the next page, my heart sank. Jake revealed something he had hidden from nearly everyone. Months before the accident, doctors had discovered a serious health condition that threatened his future. He had hoped treatment would work, but he also knew there was a chance he would not live long enough to complete the veterans' housing project. Rather than burdening friends and family with worry, he kept fighting in silence while preparing for every possibility. In the letter, he explained that if anything happened to him, he wanted me to finish what we had started together years ago. Emily then opened a folder she had brought with her and placed several legal documents on the table. The papers confirmed everything Jake had written. He had left me half ownership of the project, along with detailed plans, financial records, and contacts who were already involved. For several minutes I could barely speak. The responsibility felt enormous, but so did the trust Jake had placed in me. Emily explained that she had spent the past year organizing the paperwork exactly as Jake requested. She believed in the project just as much as he did and wanted to help see it through to completion. The following months became some of the busiest of my life. Emily and I worked tirelessly with contractors, local officials, and veteran organizations to bring Jake's vision to reality. There were setbacks, delays, and moments when the goal seemed impossible. Yet every time we faced an obstacle, I reread Jake's letter and remembered why we were doing it. Nearly a year later, dozens of veterans and their families gathered outside the first completed housing community. As Emily and I stood together cutting the ribbon, I looked toward the sky and smiled. Jake's final request had never been about money or property. It was about continuing a mission built on friendship, loyalty, and service, a mission that would help others for generations to come.